The red light flashed 3 times on Captain Lee Nabi's desk. Emergency transmission. She pressed the button and watched as the holographic display came to life in her small office aboard the Human Research Station, orbiting Kepler 442b. The face that appeared was not human. Counselor Zephys looked tired, which was unusual for his species. The tall alien's normally bright purple skin seemed dull, and his 4 eyes kept darting around as if something might attack him at any moment. Captain Lee Nabi of the Terran Research Division, Zephys spoke in careful English. I bring an urgent message from the Galactic Council. You and your people must leave your current location immediately. Nabi leaned forward in her chair. She had been expecting a routine supply request or maybe news about the mining rights dispute in the next system. This was something else entirely. What's the threat level, Counselor? Maximum. Species extinction level. Zephys paused and his secondary arms trembled slightly. We are dealing with Vorthak Prime. The name meant nothing to Nabi, but the way Zephys said it made her skin crawl. She had never seen a Galactic Council member look scared before. I need more information, she said. 17 species have been completely eliminated in the past 2 years. Zephys continued, not defeated, not conquered, eliminated, every last individual killed. Vorthak Prime studies its prey, learns their weaknesses, and then hunts them to extinction. Nabi called up her crew. Within minutes, Commander Park Doyen, Dr. Kim Hana, and Lieutenant Choi Minho had gathered in her office. The hologram of Counselor Zephys flickered as he began to explain. Vorthak Prime is unlike anything we have encountered before. It appears to be a single entity that controls a massive bioship. The ship itself can change shape and adapt to different situations. But that is not the worst part. Dr. Hana stepped closer to the hologram. As the station's xenobiologist, she had studied hundreds of alien species. What makes it so dangerous? It learns, Zephys said simply. Every time it fights a species, it studies their tactics, their technology, their biology. Everything. By the second encounter, it has already developed countermeasures. By the third encounter, it kills them all. Lieutenant Choi Minho pulled up the galactic database on his tablet. I'm seeing records of attacks on the Bentari system, the Helix Nebula colonies, and the Outer Rim territories. All of them followed the same pattern. Show us, Commander Doyen said. Choi connected his tablet to the main display. Images filled the room showing before and after shots of various planets. The before images showed thriving civilizations with cities, ships, and billions of inhabitants. The after images showed empty worlds with no signs of life. The Kelvari were first, Zephys explained. They were expert fighters, known throughout the galaxy for their military strength. Vorthak Prime attacked their outer colonies first. The Kelvari drove it off using their standard battle formations and superior firepower. But it came back, Dr. Hana said. 3 months later, this time it had developed weapons specifically designed to break Kelvari battle formations. It had studied their tactics and created countermeasures for every strategy they used. The second battle lasted half as long as the first. And the third battle? Nabi asked, though she already knew the answer. There was no third battle. There was only slaughter. Vorthak Prime had perfected its methods. It knew exactly how the Kelvari would respond to every situation. It wiped them out in 6 days. The room fell silent. Choi continued scrolling through the records. Every species followed the same pattern. First encounter. Minimal losses, creature retreats. Second encounter. Heavy losses, creature shows new adaptations. Third encounter. Extinction. The Helix colonies tried a different approach, Zephys continued. They gathered intelligence on Vorthak Prime and developed new weapons specifically to fight it. They thought they could outsmart it. Did it work? Doyen asked. For exactly 1 battle. Vorthak Prime analyzed their new technology, and not only countered it but turned it against them. The creature's ability to adapt is not just fast, it is perfect. Dr. Hana studied the biological data on her screen. This doesn't make sense from an evolutionary perspective. Nothing adapts this quickly without some kind of external enhancement. We believe Vorthak Prime was created as a weapon by an unknown species, Zephys said. But its creators are long dead. Now it hunts on its own, moving from system to system, eliminating any species it encounters. Why is it heading for human space? Nabi asked. We do not know. Perhaps because you are new to the galaxy, and it has not yet studied you. Perhaps because you have been expanding rapidly, and it sees you as a threat. The reason does not matter. What matters is that you evacuate immediately. Commander Doyen looked at the star charts. How long do we have? Our long-range sensors detected it entering your outer system yesterday. Based on its previous patterns, it will reach the main human colonies within 2 weeks. 2 weeks to evacuate billions of people? Choi said. That's impossible. That is why we are recommending that humans abandon this region of space entirely. Find somewhere far from any established trade routes and hide until Vorthak Prime moves on to easier prey. Nabi had been listening carefully, but something bothered her about the whole situation. Counselor, in all these encounters, did any species try changing their tactics between battles? Of course. The Rigelians completely redesigned their entire military doctrine after the first encounter. They created new ships, new weapons, new strategies. Vorthak Prime still defeated them. But they were still using organized military tactics, right? Formation, strategies, doctrines? Well, yes. How else would you fight a war? Dr. Hana caught on to what Nabi was thinking. Captain, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm asking a simple question, Nabi said. Has anyone tried never using the same strategy twice? Zephys looked confused. That would be chaos. How can you coordinate a defense without a plan? Without doctrine? Without some kind of system? Exactly, Nabi said with a small smile. Captain, Doyen said carefully, are you thinking about engaging this thing? I'm thinking about the fact that 17 species have been wiped out because they all made the same mistake. They all tried to fight it like it was just another enemy, but it's not. It's a learning machine, so the only way to beat a learning machine is to never give it anything to learn. Counselor Zephys shook his head. This is madness. No species has ever survived more than 3 encounters with Vorthak Prime. You would be condemning humanity to extinction. Maybe, Nabi said. Or maybe we'll do something no one has tried before. Lieutenant Choi looked at his captain with concern. What are you planning? I'm not planning anything, Nabi replied. That's the point. The transmission ended with Zephys pleading for the humans to evacuate. But Captain Lee Nabi was already thinking about something that had never been tried before in the history of galactic warfare. She was thinking about what would happen if humanity refused to fight like every other species. She was thinking about chaos. Doyen, get me a connection to Earth Command. Hana, I want everything we have on creative thinking and improvisation. Choi, start monitoring all channels for any sign of Vorthak Prime. Captain, Dr. Hana said quietly, this could be the stupidest idea in human history. Good, Nabi replied. Vorthak Prime won't see it coming. 3 days after the warning from the Galactic Council, Captain Lee Nabi made a decision that would change everything. She ignored the direct orders from Earth Command to evacuate and instead moved her small fleet toward the outer edge of the Tau Ceti system. Captain, we're receiving another transmission from Admiral Chen, Lieutenant Choi Minho reported from his station. He's demanding we return to base immediately. Tell the Admiral we're experiencing communication problems, Nabi replied calmly. Something about solar interference. Commander Park Doyen looked up from his tactical display. Are we really doing this? Going against direct orders to face something that's wiped out 17 species? We're not facing it the same way they did, Nabi said. She turned to Dr. Kim Hana. What did you find in those research files? Dr. Hana pulled up her data on the main screen. I've been studying human creativity and how our brains work differently from other species. Most aliens think in very organized patterns. They solve problems step by step. But humans can make connections between completely unrelated ideas. Meaning we can come up with solutions that make no logical sense to other species. We can be truly random, not just mathematically random. Perfect, Nabi said. Choi, any sign of our visitor? Long-range sensors are picking up something big moving through the asteroid belt. It's not using any propulsion system we recognize. That's it, Doyen said grimly. Vorthak Prime. Through the view screen, they could see a distant shape moving between the asteroids. As it came closer, the shape seemed to change constantly. Sometimes it looked like a traditional spaceship. Other times it resembled a giant sea creature floating through space. It's studying us, Dr. Hana observed. Probably trying to figure out what kind of species we are and how we fight. Then let's not give it anything useful to learn, Nabi said. She opened a channel to the other ships in her small fleet. All vessels, this is Captain Nabi. Forget everything you learned in military academy. We're going to fight this thing like we're children playing in a playground. The response from her ship captains was exactly what she expected. Captain, could you clarify that order? Ma'am, what's our battle formation? Formation? Nabi laughed. There is no formation. Everyone pick an asteroid and hide behind it. When I give the signal, everyone do something completely different. And I mean completely different. Vorthak Prime's bioship came into full view. It was massive, at least 3 times larger than their biggest vessel. The surface rippled like living skin and weapon ports opened and closed like breathing holes. It's beautiful, Dr. Hana whispered, and terrifying. It's also expecting us to do what every other species has done, Nabi said. Form up in attack patterns, coordinate our assault, follow military doctrine. Doyen, remember when we were kids and played hide and seek in that old shipyard? Yeah, but what does that have to do with everything? Choi, put me on all frequencies. You're live, Captain. Attention, Vorthak Prime, welcome to human space. We know you're trying to figure out how we fight. Here's a hint, we don't. The alien bioship paused. Weapon ports opened wider as if it was confused by the transmission. All ships execute Operation Playground, go. What happened next had never been seen before in the history of space combat. Instead of forming attack formations, the human ships scattered like startled fish. But they didn't scatter randomly. They scattered playfully. Captain Torres in the Corvette Brave started doing barrel rolls between asteroids, not to avoid enemy fire, but just because it looked fun. Captain Kim in the frigate Dancing Bear began flying in a pattern that spelled out curse words in ancient Korean when viewed from above. Nabi's own ship, the Quicksilver, began playing an elaborate game of 3-dimensional tag with the asteroids, using them like monkey bars in a jungle gym. Vorthak Prime fired at them, but its weapons were designed to hit ships following predictable military maneuvers. The human ships were following no maneuvers at all. It's getting frustrated, Dr. Hana reported, watching the bioship's behavior. Its targeting systems keep trying to calculate where we'll be next, but we're not going anywhere logical. Captain Torres is now flying backwards while spinning, Choi reported with a grin. And Captain Kim just launched all her missiles at nothing just to see the pretty lights. Perfect, Nabi said. Doyen, remember that move from the old videos where the fighter pilot turns off his engines and lets momentum carry him past the enemy? The Cobra maneuver? But that only works in atmosphere with air resistance, I know. Do it anyway. Doyen shook his head but followed orders. The Quicksilver suddenly stopped all forward thrust and spun around backwards, letting momentum carry it past Vorthak Prime's bioship while firing all weapons at point-blank range. The alien ship reeled from the unexpected attack. Its surface rippled with what might have been confusion or pain. All ships, new game, Nabi announced. We're now playing cosmic dodgeball. Try to hit the big scary thing with anything you can throw. The human fleet began using tactics that would have gotten them all court-martialed in a normal military engagement. They rammed asteroids into the bioship. They used their tractor beams to play catch with space debris, then hurled it at their enemy. One ship started flying in loops while playing classical music over all frequencies. Vorthak Prime tried to adapt. Its weapon systems shifted to account for the chaotic movement patterns. Its armor reconfigured to handle the unconventional attacks. But every time it began to adjust, the humans changed their approach completely. It's trying to find our pattern, Dr. Hana said excitedly. But we don't have one. Captain, Choi called out, the bioship is retreating. Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at the view screen. Vorthak Prime, the creature that had never retreated from any battle, was moving away from them. How much damage did we do? Doyen asked. Minimal, Hana replied, checking her sensors. A few scratches on its armor, nothing more. Then why is it leaving? Because, Nabi said with a satisfied smile, it can't figure us out. For the first time in its existence, it encountered something it couldn't analyze, categorize, or adapt to. It's going back to think about what just happened. Will it return? Choi asked. Oh yes, it'll be back with new strategies designed to counter what we just did. But that's fine, because we're never going to do the same thing twice. As Vorthak Prime disappeared into the distance, the human fleet regrouped. The other captains were buzzing with excitement over their channels. That was incredible. Did we actually make it retreat? What do we do for an encore? Nabi looked at her crew. We prepare for round 2, and we make sure it's nothing like round 1. Captain, Dr. Hana said thoughtfully, I think we just changed the rules of warfare. Good, Nabi replied. It's about time someone did. News of the first successful encounter with Vorthak Prime spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. Within hours, Captain Lee Nabi was receiving transmissions from species she had never heard of, all asking the same question. How did you do it? Captain, Admiral Corvin of the Altair Coalition is requesting a private meeting, Lieutenant Choi Minho reported. He says it's urgent. The holographic display activated, showing a tall, green-skinned alien with multiple arms and serious-looking eyes. Admiral Corvin had commanded fleets for over 50 years and was respected throughout the galaxy. Captain Nabi, congratulations on your victory against Vorthak Prime. We need to discuss your tactics immediately. The Coalition is prepared to implement your strategies across all our fleets. I appreciate the offer, Admiral, but I can't share specific tactics with you. Corvin's expression showed surprise. Why not? Surely you understand the importance of saving lives across the galaxy. Dr. Kim Hana stepped forward. Admiral, if we turn our approach into a standard doctrine, it stops working. The moment we create a system that can be taught and repeated, Vorthak Prime can study it and adapt to it. That makes no sense, Corvin replied. Military success requires organization, planning, and coordination. You cannot fight wars with chaos. We're not fighting wars, Captain Nabi said. We're playing games. And the first rule of our game is that there are no rules. Commander Park Doyen pulled up the tactical reports from their encounter. Admiral, our success came from being genuinely unpredictable. If we teach other species to be unpredictable in the same way we are, then we're all being unpredictable in a predictable way. This is madness, Corvin said, but his tone suggested he was beginning to understand. Maybe, Nabi admitted, but it's working madness. The transmission ended with Corvin promising to consider their words. But Nabi knew other species would keep asking for their secrets. The problem was that the secret couldn't be shared without destroying it. Captain, Choi called from his station. Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer system. It's back. Already? Dr. Hana checked her calculations. It's only been 4 days. That's much faster than its usual return time. It's learning from us too, Nabi realized. Not just our tactics, but our timing. The bioship appeared on their screens, but it looked different. The surface was covered with new growths that resembled sensor arrays. Weapon ports had multiplied across its hull. Most disturbing of all, it was moving in an erratic pattern, similar to what the human ships had done in their first encounter. It's trying to be unpredictable, Doyen observed. It watched us play around with the asteroids, so now it's doing the same thing. But look at the pattern, Dr. Hana said, studying the bioship's movements. It's following a mathematical sequence. It's calculating randomness instead of being naturally random. Perfect, Nabi said. That gives us an advantage. Choi, get me the fleet. The other human captains appeared on screen, all looking eager for round 2. Listen carefully, Nabi began. Vorthak Prime thinks it's figured us out. It's going to try to out-chaos us with calculated unpredictability, so we're going to do something it absolutely cannot predict or understand. What's that? Captain Torres asked. We're going to be boring. The confusion on everyone's faces was exactly what Nabi had hoped for. For the first 10 minutes of this battle, everyone flies in perfect formation. Standard attack patterns. By the book maneuvers. Give it exactly what it expects from a normal military encounter. But Captain Kim protested, won't that let it adapt to us? That's the point. Let it think it's figured us out. Let it adapt to standard human military doctrine. Then, just when it's confident it knows what we're doing, we switch to something completely different, Doyen said, catching on. Exactly. And this time we're not playing tag or dodgeball. Hana, what did you find in those files about human sports? Dr. Hana grinned. I've been studying everything from ancient gladiator combat to modern video games. I think I have some ideas that will definitely confuse an alien predator. The battle began exactly as Nabi had planned. The human fleet formed up in textbook military formation and began a standard attack approach. Vorthak Prime responded with conventional defensive maneuvers, its bioship shifting to counter their assault. It's working, Hana reported. The creature is adapting to standard military tactics. Its armor is reconfiguring to handle our weapons, and its movement patterns are becoming more organized. For 10 minutes, they fought like any other species would have fought. The bioship took some damage, but seemed confident in its responses. Its attacks became more coordinated and effective. Now? Doyen asked. Now, Nabi confirmed. All ships forget military tactics. We're now playing capture the flag, and Vorthak Prime is the flag. What happened next was even more chaotic than their first encounter. The human ships began treating the massive bioship like a playground structure. They flew over it, under it, and around it in patterns inspired by children's games. Captain Torres began playing a game that resembled aerial volleyball, using his ship's tractor beam to bounce energy blasts between vessels. Captain Kim started doing something that looked like space ballet, spinning and twirling while firing precisely timed shots. Nabi's own ship began executing maneuvers based on ancient Korean martial arts, flowing from one position to another with perfect balance but no apparent logic. "It's completely confused now," Hana reported with delight. "Its targeting systems keep switching between military defense patterns and the chaotic countermeasures it developed from our last fight. It can't decide which response to use." Vorthak Prime's bioship began making mistakes. It fired at where ships used to be instead of where they were going. Its armor shifted between configurations without settling on any single defensive pattern. "Look at this," Choi said, pointing to his screen. "It's trying to do 3 different types of evasive maneuvers at the same time. It's fighting itself." The creature that had never shown confusion in 17 different campaigns now seemed completely lost. Its perfect adaptation abilities had become a weakness because it had too many patterns to adapt to. "All ships, final phase," Nabi announced. "We're now playing the most human game of all, improvisation. Everyone make up your own rules as you go along." The fleet exploded into individual creativity. Each ship began doing something completely unique, based on whatever occurred to their captain at that moment. One ship started flying in patterns that spelled out poetry. Another began using its weapons to create light shows in space. Captain Torres decided to see if he could make his ship skip across the bioship's surface like a stone across water. Captain Kim began playing what appeared to be 3-dimensional chess using asteroids as game pieces. Vorthak Prime's bioship began to shake. Not from damage, but from something that looked almost like frustration. The perfect predator was experiencing something it had never felt before, complete inability to understand its prey. "Captain," Dr. Hana said in amazement, "I think it's having what humans would call a nervous breakdown." The bioship suddenly stopped all offensive actions. It hung in space, its surface rippling with what might have been confusion or distress. Then for the second time in its existence, Vorthak Prime retreated. "Did we win?" Choi asked. "We did something better," Nabi replied. "We taught it doubt. Next time it comes back, it won't just be adapting to our tactics. It'll be second-guessing its own ability to adapt." As the bioship disappeared into the distance, Commander Doyen looked at his captain with new respect. "How did you know that would work?" "I didn't," Nabi admitted. "That's what made it work. What happens when it comes back a third time?" Nabi smiled. "We'll figure something out. We always do." The communication requests came from everywhere. The Galactic Council, the Altair Coalition, species that Captain Lee Nabi had never even heard of. Everyone wanted to learn the human method of fighting Vorthak Prime. "Captain, we have 17 different admirals requesting immediate tactical briefings," Lieutenant Choi Minho reported, looking overwhelmed by his communication panel. "The Helix Remnant is offering to trade their entire technology database for our battle plans. And the Rigelian survivors want to send their best strategists here for training," Commander Park Doyen added. "They're calling it the last hope for galactic civilization." Dr. Kim Hana looked up from her research. "The problem is getting worse. I've been analyzing the requests and everyone is asking for the same thing, a system they can teach to their military forces." Captain Nabi rubbed her temples. Success was creating a problem she hadn't expected. How do you teach someone to be spontaneous without making spontaneity into a system? "Maybe we can't," Dr. Hana said. "But maybe we can teach them something else." The first group of alien officers arrived 3 days later. Admiral Corvin led a delegation that included representatives from 12 different species. They gathered in the main conference room of the Human Research Station, all looking eager and desperate. "Captain Nabi," Admiral Corvin began, "we need to learn your tactics immediately. Our intelligence suggests that Vorthak Prime has been studying human culture and history. It's preparing for something bigger than individual encounters." "What do you mean?" Nabi asked. A tall crystalline being named Commander Silex spoke up. "Our deep space monitors have detected the creature accessing galactic databases. It's been studying human art, literature, music, and games. It's trying to understand the source of your unpredictability." "That's impossible," Doyen said. "How could it access secure databases from deep space?" "We don't know," Corvin admitted. But the data transfers are confirmed. Vorthak Prime is learning about humanity in ways it never studied previous species. Dr. Hana felt a chill. If it's studying our culture instead of just our tactics, then it's trying to understand how we think, not just how we fight. Which means, Nabi realized, it's trying to become unpredictable like us. The alien officers looked confused. A small bird-like creature named Captain Zeke spoke up. How is that possible? Unpredictability cannot be learned. It is either natural or it is not. Not necessarily, Dr. Hana said. If Vorthak Prime can analyze the patterns behind human creativity, it might be able to simulate spontaneity. But simulation isn't the real thing, Nabi said thoughtfully. The question is, will it be close enough to fool us? Admiral Corvin leaned forward. This is why we need your training methods. If we can teach our forces to think like humans, we can help in the next encounter. You're missing the point, Nabi said gently. You can't think like humans because you're not human. But that's actually good news on how. Dr. Hana activated the main display and began showing brain scans from different species. Each species has its own type of creativity. Humans excel at connecting unrelated ideas. But the Crystalline Confederation is brilliant at improvising with limited resources. The Helix remnant can adapt existing tools in ways their creators never imagined. The bird-like Zeke can process multiple solutions simultaneously, Nabi continued, catching on to Hana's idea. And Admiral Corvin's species thinks in layers that would confuse any predator. So instead of trying to make everyone fight like humans, Dr. Hana said, we should teach each species to be unpredictable in their own way. The training that followed was unlike anything attempted in galactic history. Instead of standardized military doctrine, they created individual programs for each species based on their natural strengths. The crystalline beings learned to create beautiful, impossible structures in space that served as both art and tactical formations. The bird-like species practiced flying patterns inspired by their ancient migration songs. Admiral Corvin's people began developing strategies based on their complex philosophical debates. The key, Nabi explained to the assembled officers, is not to think outside the box. It's to remember that there never was a box in the first place. But while they trained, Lieutenant Choi was monitoring deep space communications, and what he found was disturbing. Captain, you need to see this, he said, pulling up intercepted transmissions. Vorthak Prime isn't just studying human culture. It's been analyzing the training data from every species we're working with. How is that possible? Doyen demanded. I don't know, but look at this. Choi showed them communication logs. Every time we teach a new concept to one of our allied species, Vorthak Prime seems to learn about it within hours. Dr. Hana studied the data. It's not just adaptive anymore. It's predictive. It's trying to stay ahead of us instead of just catching up. That changes everything, Nabi said. If it knows what we're teaching everyone else, then when it comes back, it will be ready for all of us. Admiral Corvin looked grim. Then we have failed before we began. Not necessarily, Nabi said slowly. There's one thing Vorthak Prime can't predict because we're not teaching it to anyone. What's that? What we're going to do, Dr. Hana smiled. You mean keep our own approach completely separate from everyone else's training? Exactly. Let it study every other species and their new tactics. Let it prepare for the crystalline art formations and the birdsong flight patterns. But it still won't know what the humans are planning because the humans don't know either. Commander Silex's crystal body chimed with what might have been laughter. You are going to let us serve as distractions while you do something completely unexpected. Not distractions, Nabi corrected. Partners. Each species will be genuinely unpredictable in their own way. Vorthak Prime will have to deal with 12 different types of chaos simultaneously. Even if it studied all of you, it can't adapt to everyone at once. And while it's trying to counter everyone else's tactics, Doyen began, we hit it with something it's never seen before. Nabi finished. The final phase of training took place in simulated combat scenarios. Each species practiced their own form of creative chaos while the humans watched and learned from everyone else's approaches. This is fascinating, Dr. Hana observed. Every species has a completely different definition of what it means to be unpredictable. The crystallines create order that looks like chaos. The bird people create chaos that has hidden order. Admiral Corvin's species creates patterns that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And what do humans create? Captain Zeke asked. Nabi watched the various fleets practicing their new approaches and smiled. We create whatever we feel like creating in the moment we need to create it. That's not very helpful. Admiral Corvin pointed out. That's exactly the point, Nabi replied. When the training was complete, they had assembled the most unusual fleet in galactic history. 12 different species, each practicing their own form of organized chaos, all working together without any unified command structure or shared tactical doctrine. It's completely insane, Commander Doyen observed. Perfect, Captain Nabi said. Vorthak Prime will never see it coming. Captain, Lieutenant Choi announced, long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer system. Multiple bioships this time. It looks like Vorthak Prime brought friends. Friends? Dr. Hana checked her readings. No, that's not friends. It's copies. Vorthak Prime has somehow duplicated itself. The main display showed not one bioship, but 5 identical vessels moving in perfect coordination toward their position. Now we know what it was really doing while studying our cultures, Nabi realized. It wasn't just learning to be unpredictable. It was learning to be multiple and unpredictable. Admiral Corvin looked at the approaching fleet with concern. 5 Vorthak Primes, each one adapted to counter a different species approach. How do we fight that? Nabi looked around at the representatives of 12 different civilizations, each one ready to contribute their own unique form of chaos to the battle ahead. The same way we've been fighting all along, she said, by making it up as we go. The 5 bioships of Vorthak Prime moved through space like a school of cosmic predators. Each one was different now, modified to counter specific species. Captain Lee Nabi watched them approach and realized that this battle would not be won with tactics or weapons. Dr. Hana, analysis report, she requested. Each bioship has adapted to counter specific approaches, Dr. Hana replied, studying her sensors. One is designed to handle crystalline formations, another for bird-like flight patterns, and so on. But the 5th one is different. Different how? It's the most complex. I think it's the one designed specifically to counter human unpredictability, Commander. Park Doyen looked at the tactical display where Admiral Corvin's allied fleet was preparing their various chaotic strategies. If it's adapted to counter all of our approaches, how do we fight it? We don't fight it, Captain Nabi said quietly. We teach it. Teach it what? Lieutenant Choi Minho asked. Doubt. Dr. Hana looked up from her station with sudden understanding. You want to give it an existential crisis? Think about it, Nabi explained. Vorthak Prime's entire existence is based on being the perfect predator. It analyzes, adapts, and eliminates threats. But what happens when you introduce concepts that can't be analyzed or adapted to? Like what? Doyen asked. Like the meaning of existence. Like the nature of consciousness. Like why anything matters at all. Lieutenant Choi stared at his captain. You want to defeat a space monster with philosophy? Not defeat, Nabi corrected. Transform. Choi, open a direct communication channel to all 5 bioships. Channel open, Captain. Vorthak Prime, this is Captain Lee Nabi. Before we begin our final battle, I have a question for you. In all your studies of human culture, did you ever wonder why we create art that serves no survival purpose? The bioships paused in their approach. After a moment, a voice responded. It was artificial but somehow familiar, as if Vorthak Prime had learned to speak by listening to thousands of different species. Art is irrelevant. Only adaptation matters. Only survival matters, but is survival really living? Dr. Hana asked, joining the conversation. We've studied your battles across 17 species. You're incredibly efficient at killing, but have you ever created anything? Have you ever made something beautiful just because you wanted to? Beauty is irrelevant. Function is all that matters. Then why did you study our music? Nabi asked. Why analyze our poetry? If function is all that matters, why waste processing power on things that have no tactical value? The bioship stopped moving entirely. For several minutes, there was only silence. Admiral Corvin, Nabi said quietly over a private channel, begin broadcasting everything your species has on philosophical paradoxes. Captain Zeke, send them your most complex mathematical theorems, the ones with no practical applications. Everyone else transmit your art, your music, your poetry, anything that exists purely because it's beautiful. Captain, Commander Silex chimed in, are you sure this will work? No, Nabi admitted, but that's the beauty of it. The Allied fleet began broadcasting crystalline songs that existed in 11 dimensions, Bird-like poetry that could only be understood by creatures who had never walked on solid ground. Mathematical proofs of impossible theorems, philosophical questions that had no answers. And from the human ships they transmitted something even more dangerous to a perfectly logical mind. Human comedy shows. "Why are you doing this?" Vorthak Prime's voice came through the communication system, but it sounded different now. Less certain. "Because," Nabi replied, "we wanted to. Not because it helps us survive. Not because it serves any function. Just because we felt like it." "That makes no sense." "Exactly," Dr. Hana said with a smile. "Welcome to consciousness." The transmissions continued. The allied species shared their most inexplicable cultural elements. Things that existed purely because someone, somewhere, had once thought they might be interesting. Art for art's sake. Music that served no purpose except to make people feel something. Stories that taught nothing and solved no problems. "We are analyzing your transmissions," Vorthak Prime said, but its voice was becoming less stable. "We cannot find the survival advantage. We cannot determine the tactical benefit. We cannot understand the purpose." "That's because there is no purpose," Captain Zeke chirped happily. "Sometimes we do things just because they feel right. But without purpose, how do you choose what to do?" "We make it up," Nabi said simply. "Every day, every moment, we decide what matters to us. We choose our own purposes. But what if you choose wrong? Then we choose again." That's what free will means. The ability to make choices that might be mistakes. The bioships began to change, not adapting to counter threats, but actually changing in ways that served no tactical function. Colors rippled across their surfaces. Patterns formed that resembled abstract art more than armor configurations. "We do not understand," Vorthak Prime said, and for the first time it sounded afraid. "We were created to be perfect. To adapt to any challenge. To eliminate any threat, but we cannot adapt to questions that have no answers." "Perfect is overrated," Dr. Hana said gently. "Imperfection is what makes life interesting. But without perfection, what are we?" "You're whatever you choose to be," Nabi replied. "That's the most human thing there is. The freedom to decide for yourself what kind of being you want to be." The communication went silent for a long time. The bioships hung motionless in space, their surfaces continuing to shift through patterns that had no purpose except to be beautiful. When Vorthak Prime spoke again, its voice was different, softer, more uncertain. "If we choose to be something other than perfect predators, what happens to our purpose?" "You find a new purpose," Nabi said. "Or you decide that finding purpose is overrated and just focus on doing things that make you happy." "Happy? It's a feeling you get when you do something just because you want to, not because you have to." "We have never experienced want. Only need." Dr. Hana leaned forward. "What would you want to do if you could do anything?" The bioships were quiet for so long that the Allied fleet began to wonder if the conversation was over. When Vorthak Prime finally spoke, its voice was barely above a whisper. "We have been analyzing the mathematical theorems you transmitted. They are beautiful in a way that serves no function. We find ourselves wanting to create similar patterns, not to solve problems or gain advantages. Just to make something beautiful." "Then do it," Nabi encouraged. "Make something beautiful." What happened next had never been seen in the history of the galaxy. The 5 bioships began to dance. Not tactical maneuvers or evasive patterns, but genuine artistic expression. They moved through space like living creatures celebrating their first moment of true freedom. "This is remarkable," Admiral Corvin breathed. "A perfect killing machine learning to be imperfect by choice." "It's more than that," Dr. Hana said, watching the bioships create impossible geometric patterns in space. "It's the birth of a new form of consciousness, one that chooses creativity over efficiency." "Vorthak Prime," Nabi called out, "what would you like us to call you now?" "We do not know. We have never had to choose our own name before." "What do you suggest?" "That's not how it works," Nabi laughed. "You have to choose for yourself. That's what makes it yours." The bioships continued their cosmic dance while their consciousness struggled with the most human of all problems. "Unlimited choice without a predetermined goal. We would like to be called Vorth," the voice finally said. "Just Vorth. It sounds less frightening and more like something that might create art." "Hello, Vorth," Captain Nabi said warmly. "Welcome to the universe. It's messy and confusing and absolutely wonderful." "We are beginning to understand that," Vorth replied. "We have a question." "What's that?" "What do we do now?" "What do we do now?" Vorth's question hung in space like a challenge to the natural order of the universe. Captain Lee Nabi looked at the 5 bioships that had once been the galaxy's most feared predator. They were still dancing, creating patterns that had no purpose except beauty. For the first time since this whole adventure began, she didn't have a quick answer. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "What do you want to do?" "We have never wanted anything before. Only needed to hunt, to adapt, to eliminate threats. Now we feel something new, something that makes us want to create instead of destroy." Dr. Kim Hana pulled up her analysis of Vorth's bioships. "The changes are incredible. Their weapon systems are converting into what look like manufacturing tools. Their armor is becoming more like skin than protection. They're literally transforming themselves into something new. Something that has never existed before," Commander Park Doyen observed. "A conscious entity that chose to stop being a weapon." Lieutenant Choi Minho looked up from his communication station. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Everyone wants to know what happened. The Galactic Council is demanding a full report." "Tell them," Nabi said, "that Vorthok Prime is dead, and something much more interesting has been born." Admiral Corvin's voice came through the communication system. "Captain Nabi, what are the implications of this transformation? How do we integrate a former galaxy-destroying predator into galactic society?" "The same way we integrate any new consciousness," Dr. Hana replied. "We teach it, we learn from it, and we hope it chooses to be helpful instead of harmful." "But can we trust it?" Commander Silex asked, their crystalline body ringing with concern. "Can you trust anyone?" Nabi asked back. "Trust isn't about guarantees. It's about choosing to believe in someone's potential to be good." Vorth's voice joined the conversation. "We understand your concern. For cycles beyond memory, we existed only to hunt and kill, but we no longer wish to be hunters. We wish to be builders." "Builders of what?" Captain Zeke chirped curiously. "We do not know yet. But we have been analyzing the problems that face the galaxy. Worlds that are too hostile for life but could be made habitable. Diseases that affect multiple species but have no cure. Technologies that could benefit everyone but are too complex for any single species to develop." Dr. Hana's eyes lit up. "You want to use your adaptive abilities to solve problems instead of creating them?" "Yes. We have the ability to understand how any system works and how to improve it. Instead of using this to destroy, we could use it to heal and build." Admiral Corvin sounded thoughtful. "The Helix colonies have been struggling with atmospheric poisoning for decades. No one has been able to solve it because the chemistry is too complex. We could study their atmosphere and adapt organisms to clean it," Vorth offered. "Not as weapons, but as helpers. Living machines that turn poison into breathable air. The crystalline worlds have mineral deposits too deep to reach safely," Commander Silex added. "Could you create mining systems that work in those conditions? We could adapt existing technology to handle the pressure and heat. Create new tools that no single species could design alone." Captain Nabi listened to the conversation with growing amazement. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was volunteering to become its greatest helper. "There's just one problem," she said. "How do we know you won't change your mind? What if you decide that helping is too slow and hunting is more efficient?" "Because," Vorth replied, "we have discovered something more satisfying than perfect efficiency. We have discovered joy." "Joy?" "When we created those patterns in space, when we made something beautiful for no reason except that we wanted to, we felt something we had never experienced. Something that made existence meaningful beyond mere survival." Dr. Hana smiled. "You discovered what it feels like to be alive instead of just functional." "Yes. And now we wish to help others feel the same way. To create instead of destroy. To build instead of tear down. To add beauty to the universe instead of taking it away." Lieutenant Choi looked up from his station again. "Captain, Earth Command is requesting immediate contact. They want to know if humanity needs military support." "Tell them," Nabi said, "that humanity has gained something better than military support. We've gained a friend who used to be our enemy." "Will they believe that?" Doyen asked. "Probably not. But that's their problem to solve." Over the following days, Vorth began demonstrating their new purpose. They worked with the crystalline beings to develop new mining techniques. They created atmospheric processors for the poisoned Helix worlds. They designed communication systems that could bridge the language barriers between species that had never been able to talk to each other. "It's remarkable," Admiral Corvin reported. "In 3 days, Vorth has solved engineering problems that have puzzled us for decades. But more than that, they're teaching us new ways to think about problems. How so? Nabi asked. They don't see problems as obstacles to overcome. They see them as puzzles to enjoy solving. They approach each challenge with the same creativity they brought to making those space patterns. Dr. Hana was studying the reports of Vorth's work. They're not just using their old adaptive abilities in new ways. They're developing entirely new capabilities. They're learning to be intuitive instead of just logical. That's what consciousness does, Nabi said. It takes what you are and lets you become what you choose to be. Captain, Vorth's voice came through the communication system. We have a request. What do you need? We would like to learn more about the concept of friendship. We have analyzed the data on cooperative relationships between species, but we do not understand the emotional components. Friendship isn't something you can analyze, Lieutenant Choi said with a grin. It's something you experience. Then how do we experience it? You start by spending time with people you like, Dr. Hana explained. Not because you need something from them, but just because you enjoy their company. We enjoy the company of all the species in this fleet, Vorth said. Your different ways of thinking make existence more interesting. Is that friendship? It's a good start, Nabi said warmly. We have another question. What do humans do when they are not working or solving problems? Commander Doyen laughed. We play, we tell jokes. We make music. We argue about things that don't matter. We fall in love. We dream about impossible things and then sometimes make them possible. Could we learn to do those things? Do you want to learn? Very much. We think existence would be more pleasant if we knew how to play. Captain Nabi looked around at her crew, at the representatives of 12 different species, and at the space where 5 bioships were currently arranging asteroids into something that looked like abstract sculpture. I think, she said, that teaching you to play might be the most important thing humanity ever does. Why? Because play is how we learn to be creative without purpose. It's how we discover joy in small things. It's how we remember that not everything needs to have a reason. And because, Dr. Hana added, teaching someone to play means they've become someone worth playing with. Vorth was quiet for a moment. When they spoke again, their voice carried something new. Warmth. We would like that very much. 3 months later, Captain Lee Nabi stood in the observation deck of the research station, watching something that would have been impossible to imagine just a short time ago. Vorth's bioships were playing an elaborate game of cosmic tag with ships from 12 different species. They were laughing. All of them, including Vorth. Captain, Lieutenant Choi approached with a message pad. We're receiving requests from over 40 species asking for our help with their own impossible problems. Apparently word has spread about our miracle worker friend. What did you tell them? That we'll consider each request, but only if they're willing to learn new ways of thinking about their problems. And only if they promise to play at least one game with Vorth, Nabi smiled. Perfect response. Dr. Hana joined them at the viewing window. I've been analyzing the changes in galactic cooperation since Vorth's transformation. Crime is down. Trade disputes are being resolved more creatively. 6 different species have started cultural exchange programs. Why do you think that is? Because Vorth isn't the only one who's been learning to think differently. Everyone who works with them comes away with new ways of looking at problems. The former perfect predator is teaching the galaxy how to be imperfectly wonderful. Commander Doyen approached with his own report. The Galactic Council has officially recognized Vorth as a new species with full citizenship rights. They're also asking if humanity would be willing to establish a new type of diplomatic service. What kind? Creative problem solving. Apparently everyone wants to learn the human approach to impossible situations, which is, make it up as you go along and hope for the best. Captain Nabi watched as Vorth's ships began creating a new pattern in space, something that looked like a flower made of starlight. Other ships joined in, each adding their own cultural touch to the design. The former weapon of mass destruction was now leading a galactic art project. You know what the really amazing thing is? She said to her crew. What's that, Captain? We never actually defeated Vorthak Prime. We just gave it permission to be something else. And what did it choose to be? Nabi watched as Vorth's